The World Tourism Organization defines sustainable tourism as tourism that takes full account of its current and future economics, social, and environmental impacts, addressing the needs of visitors, the industry, the environment, and host communities. Most importantly, or the key point of sustainable tourism is not to talk about, but to act in our daily life in tourism, what's so-called the responsible tourism. On this 67th online seminar, we are inviting Dr. Hiram Ting, Chairman of Sarawak Research Society, as our guest. Dr. Hiram Ting is the Director of Responsible Borneo, or REBORN, and the Chairman of Sarawak Research Society. He is currently attached to UCSI University Malaysia as an associate professor and affiliated to other institutions in different capacities, including a research fellow at Wakayama University, Japan, professorial chair at Polytechnic University of the Philippines, and Atkun Associate Professor at Mingchuan University, Taiwan. He is the founder of Southeast Asia Research Academy, or SHIRA, and one of the committee members of the International Center for Responsible Tourism in Southeast Asia. Moreover, he is the editor-in-chief of Journal of Responsible Tourism Management and Asian Journal of Business Research. His works are published in some high-impact journals such as Tourism Management, British Food Journal, European Journal of Marketing, Journal of Hospitality and Tourism Research, Tourism Economics, and Internet Research. Due to his role in research of mobilizing knowledge to practice, he serves as the ambassador of Emerald Publishing in East Asia since 2020. What so many positions held and activities carried out by Dr. Hiram Ting. And now it is your turn, Dr. Hiram, to have the welcome speech before proceeding with the presentation.
Thank you, Pak Yongki. It's good afternoon. It's good to see all of you. Even though this seminar is an online seminar, I would love to see all of you, meet all of you in person. I'm humbled with your introduction, with all the welcoming remarks. I'm Hiram. I'm based in Sarawak, which is on the eastern part of Malaysia, on the island of Borneo. So it's not far from Jakarta. In fact, Kalimantan is our neighbor. Sarawak Research Society was established in 2015. One of the main reasons is that my colleagues and I felt we should and we could do many things outside the boundary of the universities. And this is also why in recent years, apart from all my academic work, I decide to spend more time to learn from the industry people, to learn from the practitioners, in order to bridge the gaps, in order to converge our expertise, our resources for common good, for a greater cause. It is also why in the last 2 years, under Sarawak Research Society, we set up this center called Responsible Borneo, in short, REBORN. In the last 2 years, we talk about recovery, reset, rebuild. So it just so happens, Responsible Borneo, in short form, is REBORN. It shows our endeavors to work with other stakeholders, including government officials, private companies, community people, to drive tourism and to use tourism as a means to achieve greater outcomes, greater goals, something which I will elaborate later. So once again, thank you so much. I'm here to learn from all of you as well. So I hope you will find this seminar fruitful at the end of the day. Over to you, Pak Yongki.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Hiram. I also need to let you know that one of our members here, our secretary, administration secretary, Ms. Happy, had been invited to South Korea last year because she, with two of the members of tourism ministry, won a prize of about sustainable tourism. She stayed
Congratulations
for 2 weeks. Happy, our secretary. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, we have spent half an hour just for introductions of everybody. Now it's time for Dr. Hiram to do the presentation. If you wish to share screen, please, it's already set for share screen. Now, the time and the screen is yours, Dr. Hiram.
Okay. Once again, I'm honored. I'm privileged to be here to share something which I'm passionate about. So for the next 40 minutes, I will not be giving a lecture. I will not be giving any instruction. Rather, I'll be sharing with you my passion, my work. Like what I said earlier, this is a platform where we can learn from one another. Even though I do most of the talking, but I really appreciate what you have been doing in Indonesia and beyond. Similarly, like what I said earlier, the reason why Sarawak Research Society and Responsible Borneo were set up, it is because we want to create a platform where we can learn from one another. At universities, we mainly talk about theories, concepts. I will talk a bit of theories, concepts later, but hopefully I will make it as practical as possible, because at the end of the day, responsible tourism is not just for talk. It is about taking actions. It is about collaborating with all the stakeholders for common good, for a greater cause. So I'm mindful of my time. I believe now 4:30, so I should end by 5:10 Malaysia time, which is 4:10 in Jakarta, in Indonesia. Sure. Why consumers look for sustainable travel products? Traveling can often create a huge amount of waste due to single-use disposable items. Like what was said earlier, tourism does create a lot of waste, carbon dioxide to the environment. The good thing is consumers are becoming increasingly aware of these issues, partly thanks to COVID-19. God forbid, we do not want another COVID-19, but it does help making people become more aware of these issues, and they begin to find different ways to reduce the impact of their travel, tourism activities on the environment. And when people talk about sustainable tourism, more than often they refer to the environmental aspect. And we also have a lot of agencies, international bodies, such as UNWTO, United Nations World Tourism Organization, which I had the privilege to visit last week. I just came back from Spain 2 days ago. They focus a lot more on the economic perspective, and therefore we have all the figures. What about the social aspect? What about the cultural aspect? So these are things I would like to elaborate later as well. Sustainable travel products allow customers to feel confident that they make informed decisions with regard to the environment. Now, all these are easy said than done. The issue is the misuse, the use, or the abuse of these two words, sustainability and green. Businesses often use these terms to attract customers, to demonstrate, their corporate social responsibility, their best practices. We know that many companies have used these terms to greenwash. If you look at the next statement by Booking.com, by American Express, 70 of travelers today they want to travel sustainably, which is a good thing. But what is more alarming is the next phrase. Only 10% in 2022 say that they know how to do it. That is a concern. It is difficult for consumers to know which businesses are truly taking the necessary steps to create a more eco-friendly vacation. Because even though they are willing to practice sustainability, they are willing to embrace green, they may not be aware, they may not know how to do it. Lack of awareness about how important sustainability actually is and how to put it into practice is a concern. At the same time, it is an opportunity for all of us here to explore, to work on together. So sustainability is still an important word. It is still an important thing. Sustainable development goals are still our collective goals to achieve. But reality tells us there is no way for us to achieve SDGs by 2030. One study shows it could be achieved in 2050. Another study shows it could be achieved by 2070. And recently I read another report. At the rate things are going, it could only be achieved by 2090. So what is the problem? If you look at the next slide, we can Google search for many information like this. And I'm very sure all of you in the Zoom session this afternoon, you have implemented some of these initiatives. It is not a courtesy word. It is genuinely from the bottom of my heart that there's so much academics, researchers can learn from practitioners. Before Spain, I went to India. The government of Kerala invited some speakers, including myself, to talk about responsible tourism. Professor Harold Goodwin was there as well. And I told them, apart from academic talks, I like to meet industry people. I like to observe their farm, their organization. I like to talk to their people because again, when we talk about responsible tourism, no one owns this term. No one can claim he or she is an expert in responsible tourism. It's not a theory. It's not just a theory, a concept. It is about practice. Before India, I went to Indonesia. I went to Thailand and Vietnam. I told my friends the same thing. Don't arrange too many academic sessions for me because I like to spend time visiting communities, observing their work so that we can learn from one another. And anyway, if you look at this slide, nothing new basically, but there are some responsible practices we can adopt. There are things which we can learn from Intour. There are things which we can learn from Asita. Example, using locally owned accommodation, using locally owned tour operators, eating locally owned restaurants. The last point, respecting the beliefs and cultures of destinations. So there is no one size that fits all, and I will explain why later. But like I said, these are best practices. These are some practices which we can refer to and we can adopt in our organizations. Now, how can a travel business promote responsible tourism? Again, if you look at all these items, they are not new because, again, I believe many of you, your organizations have been putting all this into practice. Example, provide accurate information about your destination to tourists. Travel companies, the third point, could encourage eco-friendly practices by their customers, reducing single-use plastics, respecting nature, sanctuaries, And the last point, ensure the suppliers they work with within the destinations are held up to similar standards or responsible tourism guidelines. Again, all this are easy said than done. And this is why, as I said earlier, this is not a lecture, this is not an instruction, because I just want to glance through, quickly glance through all this to show that what we have been doing. And this is also why responsible tourism is about partnership, how we can bring different minds together, how we can work together in unison in order to exert a greater impact on the people, planet, and future generation. This is another example how a green hotel, a green restaurant, a green destination can do in order to be sustainable. Once again, I don't think these points are new to you. If you look at them, these points, the first point, they use energy saving practices. If you look at the second last, practice water conservation techniques. The last point, commit to educating guests about green initiative in the operations. It could be through verbal communication. It could be through signboards. It could be through posters. It could be through instructions in the bedroom, on the bed, on the dressing table. So there are many things which we have been doing. But I want to, speak about something broader. What about all these things? If you look at the picture on the left, what about animal exploitation? If you look at the picture below, what about landfills? What about waste? If you look at the pictures on the right, what about emission of carbon dioxide, climate change? And what about the last one? Children exploitation, human trafficking. On one hand, when children beg for money, you want to give them something. But at the same time, you are aware that it is not as simple as it appears to be, because behind these children, there is someone else. So what about all this? Apparently, these issues have nothing to do with tourism. But when you think about responsible tourism, then you will realize tourism is not just a goal. It's not just a product. It's not just an outcome. It is also a process where we can use tourism as a means to maximize benefits, to minimize negatives, to improve societal welfare. In our businesses, in our organizations, the way we operate, the way we communicate, the way we cooperate with others, with tour operators, with destination marketers, managers, with hoteliers, with all these event organizers, we can do a lot to sustain tourism through our responsible actions. I hope you begin to see what I'm trying to portray. Responsible tourism is more than just about tourism activities as the products, as the outcomes. Responsible tourism is also about the process where we can co-create values, where we can use tourism in order to drive positive change on the society. In fact, tourism, if it is responsibly managed, can be used to generate wealth for every stakeholder. Not just private companies, not just certain individuals, but every stakeholder. Again, tourism, if if responsibly managed, will make every stakeholder equal partners, not just government officials, not just tourism professors. It will make every person equal. That includes community people, people with disabilities, women, children. When tourism is developed in a responsible way, every person becomes equal. So this is no surprise why UNWTO, along with other international bodies, have been releasing statements about tourism generating jobs, providing employment opportunities, empowering women, engaging young people. You know, earlier I kept using the phrase easy said than done. Once again, easy said than done. But this afternoon, we have a big role to play. We see not only tourism as a business, we also see tourism as a social movement. Not only it brings profits to us, definitely we need profits, we need to survive, we need to progress. At the same time, we can use this as a process, as a means to perpetuate a social movement to bring a greater positive impact on the society. Now, these are a few slides I would like to briefly go through. In research, we have done quite a bit about tourism, about responsible tourism. In short, if you look at the first statement, it refers to any action, individual or group directed toward remediation of environmental issues and problems. Even though this is about environmentally responsible behavior, it articulates what responsibility is about. It can be an individual action, it can be a collective action. If we look at the second paragraph, it can be something general, it can be something specific. If we look at the last paragraph, it involves intentional action, unintentional action. It could be in the public sphere, it could be in the private sphere. Now, having said all this, again, I hope we begin to see why responsibility is about actions. And it is not just the actions of someone else. I might not be a policymaker. I might not be sitting in the parliament, in the government office, making big decisions that would have a profound impact on others. I could be just a normal person. Yet, as a normal person, I can also change my individual behavior. I can also assume my responsibility as a citizen in order to maximize benefits for myself, for my families, for my neighbors. So the word responsibility is not for someone else. It is for every person, including young people. Young people, even children, are not too early, are not too young to assume responsibility. At the same time, on the other hand, it also refers to collective actions, organizational behavior, leaders, when they come together, for example, COP in Glasgow last year, leaders shake their hands, leaders take group photos, they make collective pledges. All these are wonderful, but again, at the end of the day, it is about taking actions. It's about putting words into actions. The political will to cooperate must be strong. And again, like I said earlier, COVID-19 has been a wake-up call to many, we hope to all people, that No one is safe until everyone is safe. And we may have improved procedures. We may have revised standard procedures. We may have, improved versions on traveling health measures. What matters is the behavior to comply. Don't be surprised. It only takes one person to be irresponsible to cause another havoc. And there is another report. My apology, I could not remember where it is from. What it says is quite, alarming. If we do not learn from COVID-19, including all of us in travel tourism industry, it will be no surprise that within the next 10 years, there will be another COVID. There will be another disaster. Okay, so if we look at this slide, basically it emphasizes on education and training that go beyond the classroom format. And this is also why all of you are so critical, because apart from travel and tourism business, you are also into education. You are also providing, let's say, internship opportunities to students. Students, young people have first-hand experience how business are operated. And if all the travel agents, tour operators, they do things in a responsible manner, not only businesses are done, not only things are executed, the message about responsibility is also delivered. That would have a longer lasting impact. Last week, I was at UNWTO with the Minister of Tourism from Sarawak in order to have this bilateral talk and also to pledge our collective commitment on responsible tourism for sustainable development. If you look at the last sentence, responsible tourism is a call to action. It is not another tourism product. It is not another tourism label. Responsible tourism is not a competition to sustainable tourism, green tourism, regenerative tourism. No, responsible tourism is simply, if I may use the word simply, a social movement. It is a message. It is a call to action. It concerns behavioral change. It concerns collective actions. You can talk about cultural tourism. You can talk about gastronomy tourism. You can talk about ecotourism, slow tourism, dark tourism, whatever, cruise tourism. It's the same. Responsibility is what the stakeholders need to assume in order to sustain tourism. This is a statement from Professor Harold Goodwin. Responsible tourism is what sustains tourism. Because while we aspire to achieve our goals in 2030, in 2035, don't forget the process that we are going through today. And during this process, what matters is responsibility. And it is not just the responsibility of the tour operators, it is the responsibility of all the stakeholders. Of course, it has to start from somewhere. In my capacity, I start from myself. I advocate this to my students, to my colleagues. Again, like I said earlier, business players, tour operators, associations like Intour and ASITA are in such a pivotal position that because you can make a greater impact on your members and on the tourists, on the destinations, communities whom you visit, whom you bring people to visit. Okay, now having in light of what responsible tourism is, I hope these 3 points will become clearer. We emphasize on priorities, we emphasize on context. The reason is because when we talk about sustainable development goals, poverty eradication, for example, responsible production and consumption, for example, not every place is the same. What is important in Jakarta may not be as important in Bali. What is important in Kuching, where I am, may not be as important in Kuala Lumpur. Why? Because contexts are different. Because contexts are different, priorities are different. Why priorities and context matter? Main reason is because we have limited resources. We have limited resources. How good would it be? We have unlimited resources and we can do everything at the same time. But the reality in the real world, we know this is not the case. So while something is implemented in Berlin, something is implemented in Taipei, something is implemented in Manila, we may be implementing something else because the contexts are different, because the priorities are different. This is also why sometimes I disagree with some Western literature when they talk about big concepts and they begin to point their fingers at certain places, certain countries in Southeast Asia. You should not do this. You should not do that. We have seen a lot of this literature. The reason is because context, priorities are different. I've read literature criticizing elephant riding in Thailand. I was there some months ago. Now, do you think this is the right thing to do? Is it easy to judge this is the right thing or this is the wrong thing? It's easy to point finger at these individuals that elephant riding is wrong and therefore you should eliminate this. Easy said than done, because when you say this, do you know that elephant is part of their culture? Elephant is part of their livelihood. They live with their elephants. And if you eliminate elephant riding, what about their survival? What about their livelihood? Are you providing a holistic solution so that when this activity is eliminated, their livelihood is preserved? They could find a substitute and they could do something else and they can continue living and thriving. So it's not about right or wrong. It's about understanding the context and therefore the priorities. And therefore we can formulate actions which are practically useful to that particular region. Next point, it concerns trust and respect. And when we talk about sustainable tourism, again, if you look at the literature, we emphasize a lot about minimizing negative effects. Nothing wrong with this, nothing wrong, because we are living in a world with a lot of negatives anyway. Responsible tourism also emphasizes on maximizing the positive. While we minimize the negative, we should also come up with some initiatives to maximize the profit. For example, Global Himalaya Expedition, GHE. I know the director, Mr. Jaideep Bansal. What they do, or what they have been doing, is for travelers, people who like to explore Himalaya, before they go up, they are asked whether they could bring some supply to the mountain in order to hand over to the community people. So it does not really affect their adventure, but it makes their adventure a lot more meaningful Because while they explore Himalaya, they could also do something to contribute to the community living in the Himalayan. So this is what it means, maximizing positive benefits to local stakeholders. Again, this is something that all of us can do. How we design our packages, how we design our activities, we can design them in such a way that not only it minimizes the negative impact, it also maximizes the positive benefits this tour, this itinerary can bring to the industry, to the community. The last point is about value co-creation in the process. Yes, the goal is important, but don't overlook, don't neglect the process that we go through, because this is a process where we can create values with multiple stakeholders in order to achieve mutually beneficial goals. This is just a quick diagram to show these three terms. Under priorities: importance, urgency, and significance. If you remember what I said earlier, we are not living in an ideal world. We are living in a situation where resources are limited time, limited resources. Therefore, what is important may not be urgent. I hope you get the point, huh? SDGs, every goal is important. But when it comes to implementation, when it comes to a specific context, when it comes to a specific village, destination, the scenario is so different from that of another destinations. We need to understand the context in order to identify what the priorities are. And this is why urgency becomes necessary. What is important may not be urgent. And finally, what we do today, what we do tomorrow, is it something meaningful? Is it something significant in the long term? And this is where sustainability comes about. So this is a simple diagram for us to use when we evaluate a village, a community, a destination. What should be implemented first? Who are the stakeholders? What responsibility should be assumed first? While everything is important, but we have to narrow down so that we know what the first step should be before we move forward to implement the others. So important is about how much we should do. Urgent is about how soon we should do it. Significance is about how long we can sustain it. So perhaps these are the three terms you may find useful for you to consider how to design product, service, so on and so forth. Basically, these are things which I've already mentioned. If we look at the last statement, not only goals matter, process too, if not more. Irresponsibility is more than often the cause of negative issues. I still remember when COVID-19 happened, at one point of time, Vietnam boasted that there is no local transmission for the first 100 days. It did not take long to realize one irresponsible behavior caused the outbreak. Same happened to India. They thought they had contained COVID-19. They started all the activities, all the events, and as you know, needless lives are sacrificed needlessly. So the last sentence, responsibility is what sustains tourism and its future development. I think I have 10 to 15 minutes left. This is a place where one of my projects is about. Because after talking about responsible tourism for some years, I told my colleagues, we need to put our stuff to test. Don't just say it in the classroom. Prove it that it can happen. You know, this is a place not far from Kalimantan. This is called Bau. A nice place, but a closer look, this is what happens. And it's everywhere. And when we try to, develop this place, we realize that apart from what is seen here, there are some complicated issues which are not seen. Very briefly, this is a place where gold mining activities happen. And because of that, there are also a lot of illegal mining activities. If you remember what I said earlier, responsible tourism is not just a product, it's not just a goal, it is a process, it is a social movement. This would be one example. Why? Because these illegal miners, they are so subtle, so smart. When we are there, they disappear. When we are not there, they are there. They use explosives to damage this place in order to extract minerals from the caves. And what happens is, this is a simple economic logic. If there is supply, there must be demand. And we realize people who demand it are quote, somebody. So the issues are more complicated than what we can do. Therefore, what we decide is, why not we develop this as a tourism destination in a responsible way? On one hand, we could not deal with these illegal mining activities. On the other hand, we could work with the community members, we could work with the local authorities to develop this place as a tourism destination. As a result, because of this development, it gradually reduces illegal mining activities. I hope you can see the picture, why responsible tourism now becomes a vehicle to minimize negative issues, to maximize the benefits to the local people. There are a lot of things we do, but I just want to cut my story short. If this is just a private investment, if this is just a place, a gazetted place, because of its history, local communities are not empowered to safeguard their backyard. Researchers are not allowed to do research in order to, channel the voice of the community. Then nothing much can happen. Or if something happens, it only benefits certain individuals, certain organizations. So over the last few years, these are things that we do. Again, for your reference, when we started our project, the first thing we do is we communicate with local leaders, because it's important to gain their respect, their trust. It's important to earn their trust. And we work in partnership with local government. We develop a community capacity building program. You might be surprised with the fourth item. We also do a lot of consultation with elderly. When we approach them, they were quite surprised, because elderly in rural area, many of them, they thought they are just doing some gardening, taking care of their grandchildren, and that's about it. Young people, their sons, their daughters, they already moved away to urban areas, and villages are disappearing. This is quite serious in Japan, in China. When we approach elderly, we told them, you are our national treasure. Your aging is a privilege. Because of you, this place has identity. And last year, when we brought tour operators managers to these places, we told them the same thing. Don't just bring visitors to visit the place. Bring them to connect to these places. In order to connect to these places, you have to connect to all these national treasures. They exemplify the identity, the cultural heritage of these destinations. Some elderly are almost moved to tears when we say all this, because suddenly they feel they are important. Yes, they are important. So these are things that we have been doing. We asked them to tell us their stories. We record all the stories, right or wrong, it doesn't matter. Just keep recording, because these are things that make destinations alive, meaningful. I told many people, someone asked me, which is the best place that you have ever visited? I cannot give them any answer, because Indonesia, definitely nice. Switzerland, China, so many nice places. But one thing I can be sure, I remember the place when I'm connected to the people at that destination. So this is the place where I like to visit again. If someone tells you, this is a place that I like to bring my family to visit again, then it must be a good place. It must be a good place. So connection. 2 years ago, another tourism professor asked the same question. If you use one word to describe what tourism is, what would it be? Without hesitation, I told him, connection, connecting. Yes, visiting. Yes, leisure. Yes, recreation. Nothing wrong with all this. Connection, connecting to nature, connecting to culture, connecting to people. A lot of stories, but I have to move on. School engagement, another huge thing. So these are my recent work. Again, I will not spend too much time. But what I like to emphasize is, again, I believe Intua and Asita can pioneer this. If I am not mistaken, when I met Asita last month or 2 months ago, you are already doing this, and that really, really encourages me, to do the same with tour operators in Sarawak. And that is, you also put a lot of effort on education, not only educating the travelers, the visitors, but also the students, the young people. It could be in the classroom format. It could also be on-job training, meaning during tour, by design, visitors, travelers, they learn about responsibility. They learn about sustainability. That is something that we really hope more and more business entities can emulate, can do in order to make a big impact. Now, if you look at this diagram, especially the middle part, water conservation, effective energy consumption, so on and so forth. Like what I said earlier, first glance, you may think that this has nothing to do with tourism. But again, when you think about responsible tourism, then you will realize tourism is such a dynamic industry. When it is used in a responsible way, it can exert profound impact on others, on all the stakeholders. So this is why, again, responsible tourism is a call to action. It is a message about individual change. It is also a message about all of us, why we should work together, why we should harness partnership, not only partnership among travel agents, tour operators, but across disciplines, community members. We don't do things for them, we do things with them. I said the same thing to my colleagues at universities. Sometimes students can be so reckless, you want to scold them, you want to punish them. But I told them, if you see them as equal partners, because they are the agents of change, you may change your approach. Rather than rebuking them, what about communicating with them? How about identifying their priorities, what they are good at. They may not be making a big change, but little action speaks volume. They can do a lot of things, little by little. Eventually, it becomes something significant. Now, as an academic, in order to make all this happen, we also publish journal. It's called Journal of Responsible Tourism Management, in order to advocate responsible tourism to academia, to researchers. And this is a journal supported by the Ministry of Tourism. So we need faceted approach in order to deliver the message. Apart from academic publication, we also publish a lot of works in non-academic publication, newspapers. In China, we publish in China Daily, mainstream media in China. We write magazines. We put up social online content. Why? Because academic journals, they do not reach to wider audience. Practitioners, professionals, all of you may not like to read academic journals because they are too theoretical. So in order to deliver message to wider audience, we also write articles which do not help our KPI as academics, but it has a greater impact on the other stakeholders. I can't tell you too many stories because we even use this to channel the voice of the community and to put pressure on certain authorities. To cut the story short, eventually it works. Okay, so I told my friends in academics, don't just stay in your lab. Our writing can be so powerful, and we need to work with the practitioners because they have so many data that we don't have. When you do a project, listen to the ground first, listen to the communities first, listen to the practitioners first. Then we can do something in a more impactful manner. This is another program we did in Sarawak to empower the youth so that they become aware of responsible tourism. We asked them to produce 1-minute video and posters, how to preserve culture, how to preserve nature. 2 years ago, only 50 people joined. 2 years ago, 239. Last year, 428. This year, I believe it will be more. Again, when we talk about responsible tourism, we have to go beyond just tourism activities. So this is another thing that we do. Now, I will end my sharing with this because I really like to take this opportunity to invite all of you to join a conference called International Conference on Responsible Tourism and Hospitality. And it will be held in Bogor in August, 21st to 25th of August. Tourism Minister in Sarawak, in principle, has agreed to join. 2 weeks ago, I received good news from my friends in IPB that the Minister of Tourism in Indonesia will likely come to officiate the event. Last week, when I was at UNWTO, they also agreed to send their official to join. So this is a conference where we bring together officials from the government sectors, ministries, academics, practitioners, professionals, community members, associations, and students, so that we can meet, we can network, we can share our resources. Everyone is VVIP. Of course, during opening ceremony, we have VVIP section. I hope that will be the only period. The rest of it, everyone is VVIP. No one owns anyone because we want everyone to mix. There will be plenty of coffee table, I hope. I'm still working with IPB now, so that you can grab anyone and talk to anyone, exchange your business cards, exchange your mobile phone, WhatsApp, in order to harness more partnership through communication. We include tree planting program. We include sessions on carbon dioxide emissions. We include workshops on tourism and hospitality business startup. If you may give me another minute. When I observe the situation in Malaysia, in Sarawak, we are short of labor shortage in tourism hospitality segment. I'm not sure about the situation in Indonesia as a whole, but it seems to be a common problem. Not only we are short of labor in tourism, in hospitality, we are also short of skilled labor. For Sarawakians, they like to go to Singapore because currency bigger, but they go there as a servant. Nothing wrong with servant, but you don't create values. So this is something that I've been talking to a lot of agencies. We have to do something. Now, after they graduate, they will look for a job. They will go to a company. If they don't like it, they will switch and they will go to someone else. My observation tells me in Malaysia, in Sarawak, relatively speaking, less young people are willing to venture into business startup. But if you look at Korea, if you look at Taiwan, if you look at these countries, yes, not only a lot of people work in tourism, travel, hospitality organizations, a lot of them, they also start up their own businesses in tourism and hospitality. As a result, it makes the industry more competitive, more resilient, more future-proof. So this is something that we like to do during the conference. There will be a workshop where we invite young people, relatively young, from Korea, from Taiwan, from Singapore, who are successful in business startup, to motivate our young people. Tourism, travel, hospitality, they belong to first tier industry, first tier service. It is an honor to serve people, to give back to the community. Either you work for a company or you can actually start up a business, because this is an industry where opportunities are aplenty. So anyway, I really encourage all of you to consider this event. For more information, you can get it from the host or IPB. We can share the websites and all the information with you. This is another area where you can share your story with us. So I provide the link. Again, if you find the slide useful, I'll be more than happy to share the slides with you. There is a link where we like to listen from you stories about sustainable practices, green practices, responsible practices in your region, in your company, in your engagement. So this is something that we like to compile from all of you. And before I conclude, there is a form. Again, if you like to provide feedback, do let me know, do let us know, because this is a form where we collect input from the whole Southeast Asia about the challenges of implementation, what can be done, what should be done. And after some time, we will generate the report. If you're willing to participate in this survey, we are more than happy to share with you the report when we have enough findings to generate, enough data to generate the output. My apology, I did not manage my time well, but these are the few things I would like to conclude. Number one, tell us what you think through the survey, which I just showed you. The link is on the slide. Number two, report will be generated and sent to you if you are willing to tell us your email address. If you don't want to tell us, it is perfectly fine. You can remain anonymous. Number three, consider joining ICRTH 2023. After listening to me for 40-50 minutes, responsible tourism, you don't define it in a specific way. You don't own it. You don't become expert in it. It is something which we work together, and ICRTH will be a good platform. Sorry, a bit of hard sell, for us to communicate and learn from one another. Share your story via the website. Again, it is on the slide. In terms of implementation, start with the low-hanging fruits. Any packages, any destinations that your itinerary includes, these are the places that you can begin with. How to work with the travel agents, how to work with the community members in order to make vacations, the packages, more meaningful. Apart from visiting the area, the tourists, the visitors, also learn about responsibility, and their visit actually maximize benefits to the locals. Last but not least, develop partnership to champion responsible tourism. And I hope, well, with that said, you are inspired. It's not a lecture, but this is something that we can build upon for further communication to develop more collaboration in the future. Thank you so much for listening. I hand over my time to Pak Yongki.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Hiram. Really, it's an amazing presentation. I really would like to stop you on 410, but I really don't dare to stop because your explanation, your presentation was so interesting.